I believe, of our undoing as a civilization. When the food runs out, when the resources run out, and there's so many people that, the populations of cities in America go from millions to hundreds of millions, you may have thought maybe we should have put a little rein on how many people are allowed to procreate, instead of a federal government that works to undermine our values. Just taking half that phrase to start out with here. A government that works to undermine our values. Think about that one for a second. You believe your federal government is working to undermine your values? No, I think our government is flawed. I think there are definitely some improvements that need to be made, but I had never felt that my government was working against me. I think the problem relates to the core, as I've said before, that the government is not ran anymore by under our power, is under corporate power, and therefore, yes, it would seem as though the government is working to undermine our values because the government is now big business. Taking big business out of the equation, though, would change that opinion quite vastly. Imagine a federal government that works to defend the sanctity of human life. Here we go again. Our undoing presented before us, probably less than 4 or 5 decades away from an actual dilemma. Instead of a government that works to undermine our Second Amendment rights, that seeks to ban our ammunition, now he's going to go into gun control and how law-abiding citizens, every law-abiding citizen deserves to have a gun, a right to bear arms. This is off a constitution that was written and signed in 1776 at a time when there was actually a relative possibility that the government could be overrun by militias. I think if you looked at our military strength lately here, you'd see the flaw in defending that conception.
There was something else going on in Jedi. I never noticed it till today. They built another Death Star, right?
Yeah.
Now, the first one was completed and fully operational before the Rebels destroyed it.
Luke blew it up. Give credit where credit's due.
And the second one was still being built when they blew it up.
Compliments of Lando Calrissian.
Something just never sat right with me that second time around. I could never put my finger on it, but something just wasn't right.
And you figured it out.
The first Death Star was manned by the Imperial Army. The only people on board were stormtroopers, dignitaries, Imperials.
Basically.
So when they blew it up, no problem. Evil's punished.
And the second time around?
The second time around, it wasn't even done being built yet. It was still under construction.
So
a construction job of that magnitude would require a hell of a lot more manpower than the Imperial Army had to offer. I'll bet they brought independent contractors in on that thing. Plumbers, aluminum siders, roofers.
Not just Imperials. Is that what you're getting at?
Exactly. In order to get it built quickly and quietly, they'd hire anybody that can do the job. Think the average stormtrooper knows how to install a toilet main? All they know is killing in white uniforms.
All right, so they bring in independent contractors. Why are you so upset at its destruction?
All those innocent contractors brought in to do the job were killed. Casualties of a war they had nothing to do with. All right, look, you're a roofer. Some juicy government contract comes your way. You got a wife and kids, the 2-story in suburbia. This is a government contract, which means all sorts of benefits. Along come these left-wing militants and blast everything within a 3-mile radius with their lasers. You didn't ask for that. You have no personal politics. You're just trying to scrape out a living.
was sober, man, I felt bad. Worst hangover that I ever had. It took 6 hamburgers and scotch all night. Nicotine for breakfast just to put me right. Cause if you wanna run cool, if you wanna run cool, if you wanna run cool, you got to run on heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Makes perfect sense. Lust and food and violence. Sex and money are my major kicks. Get me in a fight, I like a dirty tricks. Cause if you wanna run cool, if you wanna run cool, yes, if you wanna run cool, you got to run on heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. My chick loves a man who's strong. The things she'll do to turn me on. I love the babes, don't get me wrong. Hey, that's why I wrote this song. Yeah. Says I ought to be dead. When my ugly big car wanna climb this hill, I'll write a suicide note on $100 bill. Cause if you wanna run cool, if you wanna run cool, yes, if you wanna run cool, you got to run on heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel. Heavy, heavy fuel.
And glossing over a few more things here, he's going to talk about things that are easy to say. That he will honor the Constitution, and under no circumstance will Iran be allowed to acquire a nuclear weapon. I was unaware we had a different plan in place there in the government. Thank you for that, Mr. Cruz. We will stand up and defeat radical Islamic terrorism. did not realize we weren't trying to do that either. And we will call it by its name. Oh boy, okay, he'll now go into taking you back, if you will. Pretend you're with Ted Cruz and you're there as we watch the signing of the Declaration of Independence. We won't want to mention, Mr. Cruz, that the Founding Fathers were not religious people. We'll make it sound as though they were religious, that they were pledging their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to guiding the promise of America, and how General Washington fought and fought and fought, and how it seemed unimaginable after we saw him lose battle after battle that we would ever come out victorious. And then he's going to go on the President Delano Roosevelt at a time of depression, and how we had nothing to fear but fear itself. And these are all obvious statements, obvious quotes and facts of history. Interesting to come from a man who follows a book that does not follow history to the letter. And of course, Mr. Reagan. Imagine it's 1979 and you and I were listening to Ronald Reagan, and he was telling us that we would cut the top marginal tax rates from 70%. Right, when Ronald Reagan became president, the top marginal tax rates were 70%, and he dropped them all the way down to 28%, and that would go from a crushing stagnation to a booming economy, millions being lifted out of poverty and into prosperity, abundance. And, the Reagan tax cuts for the rich almost be considered lax compared to what the new Republican Congress and Senate and the House want to do, what Ted Cruz I think wants to do. Again, once government gets bought out by big business, there is no end to the payouts for them. And I'd be interested to see what percent he wants to drop down as far as national tax rates. The very day that he was sworn in, our hostages were languishing in Iran, and they would be released. This was the work of Billy Carter, and I think we all know that. Ronald Reagan rode the tailcoats of Billy Carter on that, without a doubt. And by the way, it says, and within a decade he would win the Cold War and tear the Berlin Wall to the ground. The USSR tore the Berlin Wall to the ground. They destroyed themselves. And if you don't believe that, you watch way too much Fox News. Okay, some more God stuff, I have to say, unfortunately. From the dawn of this country, at every stage, America has enjoyed God's providential blessing. I guess it was God's providential blessing that 9/11 happened. Was it God's providential blessing that Katrina happened? No. This happened on the Republicans' watch, and we should never forget that. And he goes on to say over and over again, when we face impossible odds, the American people rose to the challenge. You know, compared to that, repealing Obamacare and abolishing the IRS isn't all that tough. So I guess we could take care of that, but we couldn't take care of a simple hurricane and reasonable security efforts to stop terrorists from boarding our planes. I guess, as he continues to say, the power of the American people, we rise up and stand for liberty. No